Hope you read that title before you click this, because I'm not trying to explain myself in these comment section. Royce the 5'9", one of my favorite artists in rap history, has released his new project called The Book of Ryan, and I believe it came out last Friday. Now, I've been sitting with this project for a little while because I really do appreciate how consistent as a rapper Royce the 5'9" has been, how consistent lyrically he is, how consistent as just an MC he is, and how essential I feel he is to the game. And he's had albums where he's released countless songs. I'm not surprised at the length of this project. I'm not surprised it being 21 tracks. The listening experience is enjoyable in my opinion, and to get through each song is kind of easy, I would say. I'm really glad I didn't give my opinion or my review for Prime 2, because now that I have a chance to listen to this project, I see that there was really a lack of direction on Prime 2. There was a lack of purpose for that album, so I felt a lot of it was just him speaking and showing off his lyrical prowess, but I realized that he was saving this concept from that album to put here. So I'm really not as critical of Prime 2 as I normally would have been now that I've heard this project. The Book of Ryan is kind of Royce facing everything that's led him up into the point of addiction, and going back and forth with himself over things that happened in his childhood, things that happened in the industry, even skits on here where his son is talking to him and asking him questions. This album sounds really crisp and really smooth, even from the intro where the pages are turning. Like, oh my god, that sound is so satisfying. Royce has a really strong narrating voice, so even when there are tracks where he's not necessarily rhyming anything, he still tells an interesting story, like the track where he explains his brother protecting him. And there's a lot of lyrical gems here that if you really want to go on a hunt for, you can find a lot of great lines in this album. Like on the track Woke, that sounds a lot like Kendrick Lamar's Humble track to me. Royce kind of goes over everything that he's learned in life and repeats this line Hotep, which basically means to find peace within or find peace with. And I'm assuming he's aiming that towards the industry and towards rappers that are ignorant of the situations around them, which is why they, live in peace at the moment. They don't realize they're in chaos. That's just my assumption, but some of the lines here are incredible. And this is why I say Royce is essential to the game of lyricism, because the way he puts lyrics and rhymes together. We see this line on this track: hopefully that scope on the AR don't take my focus. Places where I put fakers in comas longer than daytime sopas. Any calendar day I'll hollow him. Right? So at first I'm thinking this, did he say Halloween? No, he said Halloween, like a hollow point, like late October. Excellent wordplay. On the next track, My Parallel, where the skits begin, Royce seems to take from Jill Scott's Comment Number 1 track, kind of like this open mic theme. Fascinating thing about this track is Royce seems to be taking from the Jill Scott narrative in that track, Comment Number 1, to kind of paint a direct reference to his own life. Jill Scott telling the scandal about US history, while Royce is telling the scandal of his own. There are also tracks on here where Royce seems to be tapping into another side of himself, like Godspeed. He seems to go into this higher pitched or lower tone, like a different vocal change, to kind of signify that this is a perspective of his younger self, possibly. And I had to type out some amazing lines here. We don't care what you sing, hit you in the face with the butt of the gun, you leak and get your street cred from a few streams. Y'all cut like one of them get rich or die trying wife beaters. Me, I'm just all shoulder straps and muscle, like 50 Cent. If you a hater, let's do it. I'll whip you now and then whip your boy later. Then whippings will go around like a tornado. I get rid of more yayo. I don't do rodeo, or unless I do the Floyd Mayos. God. The next track, Dumb, that features Boogie, they basically go on and on about how dumb the music industry is, and how, the Grammy system doesn't make sense, and how they're using artists for their fame to get more people to watch the Grammys when there's already a predetermined winner. Another line here, Royce says, I'm the best rapper out this bitch, except the only catch is I'm in this hoe. Boogie has a pretty good feature, and the chopped ending pretty much ties the whole song together. I like the next track because Royce specifically mentions in the skit how the music industry is trying to take him from his family. He's referencing how his father's actions had an impact on him, and how his actions directly are going to impact his son. Cocaine is a heartfelt track where Royce documents finding his father's stash of cocaine and wonders if his father's sins are going to affect the son. I'll be honest with you though, Even though Royce does a lot of singing on this album, it doesn't always go over well because this track, I think his voice sounds atrocious. And I get why he would want to do the singing because it's something that's personal to him. No other feature you would probably want to do that. When he finally does get to the part of the song where he sings cocaine, it makes his voice sound like he's suffering from a bunch of tremors. I say I understand these tracks, but I just can't get down with Royce making the assertion that he's somehow become an addict based off of his father's actions. And while conditions certainly weren't set for Royce to make sure that he didn't become an addict, making the possibility of him becoming an addict that much more likely, it's certainly possible for you to create your own path out of that. I mean, there are many people that have taken the direct opposite approach and decided they wanted to go against what they saw from their parents. There are many people and rappers who have done that. We've all heard Boblo Boat, and it was a great feature from J. Cole, where Royce and Cole reminisce about, their experiences in their own neighborhoods. While I like the next track, Legendary, for being the most experimental on the album in my opinion, Royce's delivery is strong. I just feel like sometimes he tries so hard to fit certain words into the bar or the rhyming scheme that it makes the bar itself come off as just awkward, like repeating the word party or probably the only thing around me tonight that's high besides my ideology. Like, what? And then as you pay attention to the subject matter of the track, it literally is just Royce the 5'9" saying that this is what makes you legendary if you turn down pussy. I love the next track, Summer on Lock, that features all East Coast artists, Jadakiss, Pusha T, and Fabulous. Would have loved a verse from Pusha T, but I think everyone lyrically performs on this track, and I actually like Pusha T's cool winter reference in the hook. I also like the track Amazing, where Royce reminisces about old times in his childhood. As we move through the track, we see that Royce has this conception or this idea that the ball that he was carrying around and bouncing so much that was confiscated from him from the store clerk that he used to go see when he was a child was the luck and the amazement that he needed. This is why he took the ball everywhere, but as he grows older, he comes back to the realization that he was the one that was amazing. It was always within him, and he's saying that it's within you too. If you like storytelling, then Power is the track for you. It is a track where Royce speaks from the perspective of himself, his younger and older brother, his father and mother, all on Christmas Day. He details an abuse story on Christmas and basically talks about how this situation would normally require therapy, but he never had it looked at, which is another thing that could have led to his addiction. Strong Friend is one of the most emotionally driven tracks on this entire album. Royce is talking about how strong friends are typically the ones that have the most agony, that have experienced the most pain. He even pays homage to other musical artists that have unfortunately taken their lives, like Capital Steez from Pro Era and Chester Bennington from Linkin Park. And Royce makes rapping seem as easy as breathing on the Stay Woke track. I mean, there are so many lines here that you can take with you. Some of my favorites being, you can't fathom thinking deep enough to sink the abyss. You think you Pac, I'm thinking of sinking your Demetrius ship, the actor who plays Pac in the new All Eyes on Me movie. Only thing I can't fathom is why the teacher is rich. How to think in moderation and turn drink to a sip. Leaves you wanting so much more, and the soul we get exuding from Ashley Sorrells at the end of the track is simply amazing. Now, while I definitely do enjoy the album experience, and I even like the final track with T-Pain where they both talk about how money is the thing that attracts people to you. It's when people get their confidence back, it's when people get motivation, it's when they feel happy or joy again. As this being the Book of Ryan, I just don't think the book tells a complete or very cohesive story. It seems as though Royce has mistakenly limited his life to addiction, and while that is a big part of his life, it seems like we don't get much other than that. The opening skit makes it so that he starts out with trying to explain that he's had a scandalous background and there are things that you probably don't know about him, but he doesn't really go that deep into things that he's done that are scandalous other than being an addict. He limits the scandal down to what his parents weren't able to do and basically his father for the most part. And I get that being a theme of this album is how strongly the father's impact is on the son, but again, this being the Book of Ryan, I would prefer to hear more about your story than just what issue you had. And I hate to say this about one of my favorite artists, but it seems as though Royce has victimized himself so much to the point where we don't actually get any deep level of introspection from him. Sure, we look into Royce's past and we might be able to look into his history book, but his history seems to be directly impacted or influenced from something or someone else, nothing that he's saying or claiming that was a direct reference to something that he did on his own. It also makes the track Protecting Ryan come off as a huge jab or diss to his brother, where he talks about how Greg almost kills this guy that he had a problem or an issue with on the basketball court, and he seems to be upset or angry or feuding with his brother currently because his brother's using the fact that he protected Ryan so long ago as the reason for why he's not progressing in life at this current moment. But I feel like Royce is chastising his brother for doing that, which I completely understand, but Royce is essentially limiting his addiction to what his father did and nothing that he did to himself. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Royce and Greg, I would assume, grew up in the same household and they had the same father and they experienced a lot of the same things. Greg, to the extent that I would say even more so because he's older, he probably saw it more often, I would say. Why is it that Royce gets to use the excuse that his father was an addict and that's why he's an addict to some extent, and Royce's brother Greg doesn't get to use any excuse at all? I get it, excuses are lame in general, they're trash, but why is it that you don't have a problem using them but your brother can't? There seems to always be a reason for Royce but never a reason for anyone else as he's explaining this album. While I like Royce as an artist and I love everything that he's delivering to this track, and some of the tracks are very heartfelt and emotional, we can see the picture being painted with how the father's sins affect the son, even on the skits where his son is asking him questions. I just feel like it's less of a story about Royce and more of a story about why I essentially became an addict. I like that Royce is doing a lot of the singing on this project, and he feels he kind of needs to be a jack of all trades to become an artist who is listenable nowadays, or even marketable at the very least, but I don't really think he's as strong in these other lanes as he would like for himself to be. I definitely do appreciate the outgoing personality that he shows, and there's a lot of charisma on some of these tracks, but I just don't think he pulls it off well enough for him to be the focal point of the singing sometimes. It's the same thing on the track Caterpillar. I love the production and how even though it's still a boom bap beat, it has some nice jingly, modern, hypnotic, clean mixed production with a great feature from Eminem minus the literal shit references, and a pretty great hook from King Green, but we still get two Royce da 5'9" verses back to back. And I get the point of Caterpillar for Royce da 5'9", basically saying that in order to continue my life as a rapper, I will basically need to evolve into another species. But they're saying, Eminem and Royce, that they're the caterpillars, but they essentially have to become the butterflies that they are denouncing in order to stay relevant. Which is why when people were telling me this track was about respecting the caterpillar and that Royce and Eminem are, you know, the OGs, are they essentially denouncing themselves and saying that they haven't evolved to the point where they became a butterfly? Because you really don't have a choice if you're a caterpillar to become a butterfly if you don't want to die. Well, I think there's a lot to enjoy with this album. I just don't think Royce is telling a detailed enough story for me to listen to each track and get something different out of every single one of them. Some of the tracks I feel like could have fit into one another. Some tracks I could do without that don't really tell that deep of a story or that interesting of a concept are tracks like Life is Fair, Amazing, Outside. The final track, even though I enjoy it with T-Pain, doesn't need to be there. Anything / Everything. And good God, Logic's biracial rant at the end of this album is the cringiest thing I've heard in 2018. While I love Royce da 5'9" as a lyricist, there isn't enough great conceptual or deep storytelling of this album for me to come back to that many tracks on here, with the exception of maybe 5. Royce da 5'9", The Book of Ryan. I liked it. I did. I just think it falls too short. It's been me. It's been real. If you disagree with my opinion, go ahead and let me know why in the comment section down below. If you agree with my opinion, that's great. Let me know why in the comment section down below. And if you're a little bit mixed on this album, also let me know. But thank you for watching the video. Keep listening to the album if you love it. Stop if you hate it, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. It's been Shawn C, and I'm out. Peace.